On today's show, do you believe that Slovenia can win the FIBA World Cup? We'll break down their game against Georgia, what we saw from Luka Doncic, and more on today's Locked On Mavs FIBA edition.
I'm Luka Doncic, and this is Locked On Mavericks podcast.
Mavericks, NBA champions. Bang! It's good, and the Mavericks have won the game.
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
Loyalty never fades away.
And welcome. You are locked on to the Dallas Mavericks. My name is Nick Angstadt, media member at NBA, channel manager for the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for being part of the show, making Locked On Mavs your first listen every day. Join the Raccoon Squad. Be an everydayer. Subscribe, follow for free. Just search Locked On Mavericks wherever you get your podcasts or on YouTube. But the best way you can help us grow the show is to listen every day and to comment anything below. Let us know in the comment section. Do you believe that Slovenia can win the FIBA World Cup? In your heart of hearts. If you want to support the show, text us, get text alerts from us on Mavs rumors and more stuff throughout the offseason. It'll really ramp up during the season. Subscribe to our subtext, click the link in the description, text the number as well, and you can send us questions, all that kind of stuff. And joining me, for real this time, my co-host, writer, contributor, Mavs.com, early morning at Studio 41, the One More Thing King. What you got for me, Isaac Harris?
Yeah, I made a joke early yesterday morning that I'm like, hey, there's only two people in this world, actually three people in this world that can get me up at 4 o'clock in the morning. And that is my, that is my, that's going to get really more weird now. That is my toddlers and Luka Doncic. And I just imagine now Luka standing on your front lawn, little pebbles at the window, and you open the window. And then there's just you open the window. He's got a boombox over his head, and it just says, "Luka Doncic, Luka Doncic, Luka Doncic." Rolled into the Mavs offices when it was still dark. I was like, "This is a first for me," and I had some fun watching the game and just making fun of the Georgia's coach's polo. It's like, you need to go up a size, buddy, and just different stuff. And but it was a lot of fun.
That Georgia coach wanted them to play defense so badly.
He was, yeah. I'm like, that game was 2 minutes in. I'm like, y'all are gonna be pissed.
It's not
playing against Luka.
You just don't have it. Like, you're down. What was it, 14-2 at the start? We'll break it all down and all that, but man, after that, you're like, I don't know if you guys are coming back from this one. And yet they led after the first quarter. So, but today we'll break down that game against Georgia for Slovenia. We're covering all these games, Luka Doncic's games. I've been covering Australia with Josh Green and Dante Exum. I've also been covering the Canada games for the 4 people that have been messaging me about, why are you not covering Dwight Powell in Canada? I've been covering those games. Those have been fun. Canada's really good.
Well, just like I said this the other day on the solo pod that, I told everybody, I was like, Nick said he didn't want to cover Dwight, and
it's true.
So I was like, you kind of have to blame Nick. He didn't want to cover Dwight in Canada, so let him know.
And then who's been the one that's done it? Both of their group games so far.
That's true.
That's me.
Yeah, you've been checking out that plus minus from Dwight.
Dwight's doing stuff on the, and I've been telling everybody this too. He's starting.
Yeah,
he's starting. So. But yeah, we'll break down that game. But let's start here. So Luka Doncic in Slovenia. Luka Doncic and Slovenia have won both of their group games now in the FIBA World Cup. That's how the first part of it starts. They'll play, each team is in a group of 4. They play the 3 other teams in their group. The 2 teams that have the highest point total, win, like tiebreakers, all that kind of stuff. They'll move on to the next and be put in another group. Slovenia has won both of their games now, and now they'll most likely be they will be moving on, right? Because I don't think there's any way.
There's a small chance that they don't, but I mean they're going to beat Cape there.
Okay, so if they lose to Cape Verde by like a certain number, I guess they would have to hold on.
No,
I didn't think it was mathematically possible, but I think it is.
It's possible, but so they're going to move on.
I think Cape Verde would have to win by 56 points against Slovenia. So, hey.
They got Big Eddie.
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
And so that game, we'll have a post game after that as well. But now that they've won those 2 games, seems like they're going to move on. They have a sizable lead here on this group. Do we believe that this team can actually win the World Cup? Because I've watched most of the other teams now at this point.
Winning the whole thing, you just can't make them like a favorite. You just can't, and it's not a disrespect to Luka at all. It's just I think there's 3 teams out there that are just looking really, that are just kind of above everybody else right now. Obviously, Team USA is still a favorite. Canada, Germany's looking amazing.
They're very good
right now. So, and if you look at where they're probably going to land in that next group, it looks like they're probably going to be, playing Josh Green and Dante Exum in the next group with Australia. So, and they have a ton. I think 8 NBA players, maybe 9 NBA players on that Australia team.
Their entire rotation is in the NBA. Australia's except hold on. Their entire rotation except for their 2 starting front court guys. Everybody else, even the guys that come off the bench, all of them are in the NBA. But the 2 guys they start at 4 and 5 are not in the NBA.
Yeah, but have you been seeing those Ben Simmons jump shot?
Where is
videos?
He? They could have used him at center, honestly. They could use a guy that could rebound.
Dude, he's posting Instagram clips, so let's do this.
I'm ready. I'm ready to be heard again.
Year 10 of Ben Simmons.
Yeah, so if we look at FanDuel, we'll talk about them, but they have USA minus 140 to win the whole thing. They're the favorites. They've got the most talent, obviously. Canada plus 390. Not too far behind USA to win the whole thing. Spain plus 1,000. I think I would maybe rethink that one.
If Canada had full squad, like Wiggins and Jamal Murray, that would have been another level.
Canada's whole rotation is almost in the NBA too.
Yeah, I'm not here for Tim Bontemps of, hey, is SGA, SGA is the best player in the World Cup. I love SGA, but the level that Luka's playing at right now. Well,
he's not better than Luka, but is he better than Anthony Edwards or whoever else is on Team USA? Like, he could be the best player in that game. And that's what it's probably going to come down to, right?
Yeah, he could.
So Spain plus 1,000, they're far behind Canada then. And then Slovenia plus 1,500. They're a little bit behind Spain. Serbia plus 1,600 and Australia plus 1,600. Germany plus 1,900. That one's too far down, Germany.
Wow. Yeah, no Jokic for Serbia. Obviously, France got put out. But yeah, Germany's way too far. Germany's playing dang good basketball right now. So
they have France off the list, but they don't have other teams off the list. Like
Jordan with Rondae Hollis or Kobe.
I guess they're off the list too now. But yeah, so I don't think that they can, because look at their next round is Germany and Australia. Those teams are tough. Germany has played really, really tough. I covered them a little bit. Dirk was there to watch them play against Australia, and that's a really tough team to play against.
No Maxey for Germany. Just covering that.
Right. Australia is really tough team, but they haven't looked as good as I expected them to look so far. And so it's not impossible for Slovenia to get out of that next round. The problem is they're built so much like last year's Mavericks. It drives me insane to watch this team because they're so reliant on the 3.
Yeah, and they don't have Chanchar. That's their second NBA player there. So that's huge for them towards ACL and some of those in one of those exhibition games. And then, Blazic today, he barely walked to the locker room with the trainers and stuff. And he had a good stretch there in that second quarter.
And he was holding his lower back on the way to the that made me really nervous about that, because back situation could be really tough too. So, but I don't think they can win the whole thing. But
if you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
If they hit enough threes and get hot, Luka can score on anybody. He is the best player in this whole group. Luka is the best player in FIBA, not the group, in all of FIBA, this group of countries and teams.
The whole world.
He scored 34 points, 10 boards, 6 assists, 3 steals against Georgia, 37 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 steals against Venezuela. He is just on another level right now, and he knows how to play this game. He played international ball a lot, and so I don't think they can win the whole thing, but I do think that Luka will give them a shot. And if they can hit enough threes, if enough guys get hot at a certain point, they've got enough guys that can hit threes too, right? Blazic, when he starts, he was hitting threes. Nikolic can hit threes. Tobey can hit a 3. Their center here and there. You've got both the Prepelics that can hit threes. Horvat hit a couple of threes in this game. Gregor Glass coming off the bench. Dragic, Zoran Dragic. pretty much everybody except for Dimic can hit a three. They're like their backup center. Their backup center is the only one that can't hit a three on this whole team. So if you can create enough of those, you can make it happen. But coming up, let's talk about what we saw from Slovenia, what we saw from Luka in this game against Georgia, and we'll talk about that. Coming up. But before we do, let me tell you about FanDuel. FanDuel has you covered with all the odds, lines, and props, everything throughout the offseason. Right now, they have a special deal. You can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets. Bet $5, get $200 in bonus bets. Check that out. Get it guaranteed. Plus, all customers who bet $5 on anything will win or will get $100 off NFL Sunday ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Go check out that deal right now. If you're thinking about NFL Sunday ticket, want to watch some NFL games, you want to watch it on YouTube TV, you'll get $100 off. You might as well. That's $95 that you will save if you're already doing that thing. Now is the best time to join FanDuel. The app is easy to use, and you can bet on everything from spreads to player props and more. They have FIBA. They have the World Cup. Obviously, they have Slovenia plus 1,500 if you believe. And
if you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
Then you can check out Slovenia's odds there. They have game by game as well. Slovenia in their next game. They don't have their next game up. Australia's next game, they're 18.5 point favorite against Japan. So you can check out that one and see what's all available there. Again, it's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Thanks everyone for hanging out with us on Locked On Mavs, being part of the show, part of the Raccoon Squad, being an everydayer. If you listen every day, you're a card-carrying member. We appreciate you. All right, Isaac, let's talk about this game. Slovenia against Georgia needed to win this game, needed to win it pretty convincingly to have, to feel good about where you are in the group. They win the game 88-67. Just a resounding victory, even though it didn't start off well in the first quarter. Slovenia gets a 14-2 lead, and you're like, oh, man, this team is just outmatched. Georgia's offense looked so bad. They couldn't get anything going at all. Luka was doing everything. I think he scored 10 of their first 14 points. He assisted on the other ones. Like, he was just dealing early. He looked like way too big of a match. And then it ended Slovenia down by 1 at the end of the first quarter. It was one of the weirdest quarters I've seen from a Luka team.
Yeah, super weird. And, I mean, when you start looking at this team, and one of the bigger things for them is like when Luka comes off the floor, is like, all right, can they keep scoring? He plays, the whole first. I think it's fully the whole first. He did, that first game against Venezuela too, but the second quarter happens and they can, Georgia goes on a little run. Yeah, going into this, to kind of back up a little bit. Totally different makeup of a team for Georgia than Venezuela, right? Venezuela comes in, they're like, all right, we can't guard anybody, so we're going to have to launch a million threes.
And they did.
They did that, and they hit a good chunk of them. They hit 40% of the threes. Georgia is a big
12 of 25 of the first half. They were like dealing from three. It's crazy.
So Georgia comes in, Luka says it in the post-game press conference. He's like, after the Venezuela game, he's like, hey, Georgia's a bigger team. They got a bunch of tall guys out there. And you start looking across the roster, and it's like, all right, if you're an NBA fan, you know about Goga Batadze, but then you look at, two of their other guys that are kind of staples on their team, and the Shermadini and the, what's the other? Shingelia. Shingelia actually.
They got some names on this team.
Yeah, I'm not even going to try the other ones. Mamu had a good game, but these guys are, when you start doing any of the research on this Georgia team, it was like, this is the best that we could possibly put out. Like, this is all of their guys were basically playing, and they just had this like bigger squad outside of, McFadden, their point guard there. So going into it, I was like, all right, this is, will they collapse the paint? Will they try to take that away from Luka? If you can take it away from Luka, and just dare the other guys to hit a three. And that's kind of what they did a little bit. I mean, Luka was still drawing a bunch of fouls. He's getting a bunch of free throws. The announcers are funny about that. But they were missing threes. Like, they didn't hit a single three for, I think the whole first quarter, right? And then Luka comes out and hits the three in the second quarter.
Yeah, that stuff wasn't working for them. They scored most of their stuff in the paint. Like, they dominated in the paint in this one. Yeah. What did they finish in? Well, they finished 24-24, but it was much bigger. It was much bigger than that early on. And Georgia, like you said, they're a bigger team. They throw it down in the post, and they're trying to create all that stuff in the post. But I feel like they also overpassed a little bit because they're just like, all right, we're going to put it in the post and then throw it around and try and figure out what to do with this. And they couldn't really get a ton going. And, you mentioned that run like without Luka. And that's been a thing that I've been watching in all these preparation games and in these World Cup games so far is what do they do without Luka? And we saw the first run of it at the end of the second quarter. Luka subs out with about 6.5 minutes left. Slovenia's up by 1. Luka comes back in with about 2.5 minutes left. They went on an 11-4 run without him. Their offense moves very different when Luka's not in there. It's very Mavericks looking as well, where their offense actually has a little movement, and it's not just ISO and that's it when Luka is on the court.
Well, so, I think it's part of the guys too, of like knowing, hey, our captain's off the floor. We got to pick it up a little bit more.
Yes.
The intensity, Georgia, took, they were staying in the game there. They took the lead before that, but they stayed in the game there. And it's, when Luka goes out, it feels like the whole like energy of like, hey, we got to kind of like overcompensate. And man, they were just flying around everywhere. They drew a couple offensive fouls. That's when Blazic, had a couple, nice moves, aggressive to the rim. So that was a fun stretch to watch. And then Luka comes in, has a big play. He's hyped, yelling at the crowd, and I'm like, hyped too for him. And it's just, I think there's a difference of seeing like Luka hyped with the Mavs and then seeing Luka hyped with Slovenia. It gets me a little bit extra hyped because how much it means to him.
Well, it's also like this is kind of a pre-playoff game too, right? You think about the stakes of this game compared to what we've seen from Luka for the most part is a regular season game. He gets hyped for that, but not in the way that he gets hyped for a game with some actual stakes in it. It feels like in this one. But so you have that 11-4 run without Luka, and the Georgia coach is just screaming about defense on the bench and during that timeout when Georgia had to call a timeout there. And it's one of the more interesting things about this whole FIBA presentation is that they show the huddles and you can hear the coach.
That's awesome.
The Australia coach the other night looked at Josh Giddey and just screamed an F-bomb just right at Josh Giddey because
we're playing for our lives.
We're playing
There's 2 dead bodies. It's like, what? Whoa. Why did you just go like William Wallace on us?
The Georgia coach, I think, was the angriest coach I've seen so far.
Well, I think anytime you coach against Luka, you just want to pull your hair out. Seeing the progression of their fans from the beginning of the game to when, and then they like tied it and they're all hyped. And then, once Slovenia was up, they're just like depressed.
Slovenia took a 45-33 lead into halftime. And it was like they pretty much just never gave it back at all. It got close. It got to be within about 5 with 7 minutes to go in the third quarter. Like, Slovenia kind of let him back in, and then just Luka took over. Pick and roll with Tobey. Luka had a overhead pass where he had to hit Tobey like right on the hands as he was rolling into the paint. If he was any shorter or arms were any shorter at all, he wouldn't have got this pass, and he got it right there. Luka had a step back 3, and that's when he started really, really going at the fans at that point. And then at the end of that, you had a bad collision between Blazic and a Georgian player. Blazic leaves the floor, goes to the locker room. I haven't heard anything on it at this point. We'll see what happens. And
that was a weird moment too, because I didn't know. Bobby and I were watching that game, and we didn't know the rule of. So it was Shingelia who, the man bun, all that. He was the one who had the hard fall. So he comes out of the game, and in the NBA, you come out of the game like you can't come back in. That's why you see these players, taking free throws on tourniquet, not tourniquet, but like, taking free throws so they don't have to, come out of the game. He came out of the game. Another player shot the free throws, and then he came back in the game. I was like, oh, that's a rule I didn't know.
Yeah. So it seems like he's going to be okay, but he did leave the game.
I don't know. Yeah.
But yeah, I've seen some reports that media say that he's okay, that they don't think he's seriously injured. But again, we'll see with some of this stuff. Then Luka scored 26 of their first 54 points. He pushed for a rebound at the end of the third quarter. Tobey had a nice swing pass over to Klemen Prepelic, who started to hit some threes, and that's when you really start to feel like this Slovenia team is really cooking. Is when you get a couple of passes, Luka creates something insane, throws an insane pass, and then you get one more pass away, and then you get a wide open 3, and then you start hitting them. They hit 11 of 32 threes, which felt like a lot for the Slovenia team because we haven't seen a ton. But that's when they got their biggest lead and all that. Coming up, let's talk about how this game ended. Let's talk about other things that we saw and other things we've seen from this Slovenian team. Talk about that coming up.
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
All right, Isaac Harris. The rest of this game, basically, Slovenia just held the lead. They got their biggest lead. They basically held it the rest of the way. And Luka checked out with 6 minutes to go. I thought he was done. Did you think he was done too?
Yeah.
And then he wasn't.
Well, yeah, I thought, because I was joking before he went out. I was like, all right, is he going? Bobby set the over under at 35, and I took the over on 35 points. And then I thought he was going for the triple double. So then he checks out. And I was like, well, dang it. Now he's not going to get either one. Comes back. I'm like, let's go. Here, let's do this. And yeah, one of my favorite moments of the second half was, there was this like collision on the floor between Prepelic and Batazi, Goga. And Prepelic tried to like help him up. Goga wasn't about it. He was pissed. It was pretty hardcore hit on the floor.
These are physical games.
Yeah, they are. And so that just started like a back and forth. He was jabbering. And anytime a random dude he's random, whatever you want to say, but like it starts jabbing and Luka's out there, I'm like, oh, yes. Because that means Luka is just, I love seeing pissed off Luka. And to see Luka score that one time and turn around, just like, do the animated, talk your smack. And then when Luka came back in the game, I was laughing. I was like, dude, he's just coming back into the game to foul out Batazi. Like he's just gonna. And Goga fouled out eventually. So it was funny that they were just kind of jawing.
Well, you heard Paul George today on his podcast talk about how good of a trash talker Luka is, but he'll only really get into it if you start saying something to him. But if you do say something to him, 100% of the time he will respond to you. And we got to talk about that Paul George quote in a future episode, because
that means I got to listen to that podcast.
Oh, maybe just the clip.
Okay.
Other stuff we saw: Luka had their 15 of Slovenia's first 19 points himself. You had the Luka not on the court, the 11-4 run without him to take a commanding lead at that point in the second quarter. That was a big moment in this one. You also had 12-4 run in the third quarter with Luka to gain their largest lead. And between the end of the third quarter and the beginning of the fourth quarter, Georgia had almost a 5-minute stretch where they didn't score a field goal at all. They just completely went scoreless. And in a 40-minute game, that's a really long time. There were also 54 fouls called in this game, which was a lot. No,
it was absolutely insane. It was one of the longest games. I'm like, holy crap, can you call any more fouls in this game? Georgia just wants this game to be over. And a guy checked in for Slovenia I never heard of before. So number 55.
Sabasic.
Sabasic.
He started a game, one of the preparation games, I think, right? Pretty sure he did.
Can't remember. It's like I know pretty much everybody else on here, but not him.
Back there, my notes.
Anyway, they should take care of business in their next game. I am genuinely hoping for a Australia-Slovenia game at some point, because Thibault's probably going to get the matchup, but Exum and Josh Green's going to get some time on Luka too, and that's just Luka getting buckets on Josh Green is going to be incredible.
Are we going to feel really bad if Luka just destroys Josh Green? We're like, oh, God. Is this a good thing for us?
What if Exum locks him up?
Oh, no. Well, we know Luka's good. I'm not going to say, just because Exum locks him up in a FIBA game that Luka's not good anymore.
Luka goes out there and purposely lets him lock him up.
I can't imagine that being a thing that ever happens.
That's never gonna happen, but
ever happens at all.
Bible's don't hit. I tried to come to y'all. Don't take it out on me.
He signed the sheet or whatever. So
now I'm gonna stuck away in Portland.
One of the reasons why I think Luka came back in this game, by the way, in the fourth quarter, was your margin of victory matters in group play. Yeah. You have to win by a certain amount. So right now they're up. Slovenia's margin of victory right now is 36. Georgia's is 4, and they're 1-1. Then Cape Verde, who Slovenia is playing next, they're minus 19 because they've won one and lost one, and so that's why the gap is so big for Slovenia to not make it out of this group stage. So maybe he comes back. The announcers kept saying it was because he wanted the triple double and wanted. I was like, he's going to get 4 more assists in 3 minutes. Like,
no.
The announcers were not very positive, Luka.
No, they were. Favorite line of the night was and that's why everybody loves him or dislikes him. It's like you really were one to say hate.
Really didn't want to go for the whole hate. What have you seen from this team that let's do one thing that you like and one thing you don't like from this team?
Oh gosh.
Because we've seen some Slovenia teams now. We've covered Olympics, we've covered Euro Cup, like we've covered a couple of runs now.
I mean, for this team, I just love their chemistry and how much they know each other. I mean, they got some young guys on the team like Samar and stuff, but it's when you go back and look at that, everything it takes, short doc thing that he's been dropping on his channels, one of those guys, it was either Blazic or Dragic that said, for a lot of us, we've been playing 15, 20 years together.
Yeah.
And obviously Goran's not out there, but if you factor in Goran and Chanchar, and it's like, man, and a lot of them play club ball together. So they just seem so close. And honestly, that's what they got to ride. If they're going to make a run, it's going to be because of their chemistry, because they don't have the raw talent like some of these other teams do, but they do have the chemistry and time playing together that if you can just hone in on that and out hustle everybody and be on a string on defense, then your fundamentals and hustle and effort and chemistry can, that's what will help lead to an upset or a run in a tournament like this. So, but the thing I don't like is, whenever they come up to a team like Australia or something and they're throwing out Thibault, I mean, let's just say that they decided to double and they double with like Thibault and Exum or whoever it is. It's like, I mean, they just don't have a secondary option. They can run Prepelic off screens, and they, Nikolic can help run it, try to run an offense. Like Luka went out today and they're like trying to post Tobey down low and stuff. I mean, they're trying to generate offense, but that's the thing that without Dragic, I just go back to, in our Slovenia listeners, they know they got to listen to or watch this team play for so long. And, when Dragic was really, peak Dragic, but I go back to that first memory for me for Luka on Slovenia was that Eurobasket that they won, him and Dragic together. And that was like one of my first, like, ooh, this Luka kid's going to be, incredible. And so that's what, like, now you wish they had a Dragic. And I'll put this out there. I said this on the stream today from Mavs.com, but somebody tell me why the young kid is not playing.
I've been saying this the whole time. Samar, right?
No, not him. That's not on the team. The young like prodigy. I think it's the VJ or VD. I don't know, but he just committed to UCLA, so I know he's going to play at UCLA. But I've been seeing stuff about him for a while. Just like this he's the next young Slovenian guy, and I just don't know enough about him to know like why he's not on the team. Is he like too young? I don't know, but it would be nice for Luka to have like I don't know. It feels like national teams are out there like scouting players now. So
he played in the U19 FIBA World Cup. So maybe they like if he's gonna play in that one, he won't play it. Like he can't play in the O19, like the over 19 one, whatever. Whatever this one would be the 019 one, right?
They need to get out there scouting and like get like Embiid or something. It feels like everybody's like trying to recruit Embiid right now. France, USA.
I'll do mine quick. Well, something I like about this team, they've got a bunch of shooters. Like you've just got a ton of options, and I think that they all pretty much move the ball well. I like how I'm seeing Tobey pass out of the short roll. He had a couple of good. How many assists did he have today? He had 3 assists, and he kind of after he goes out of a screen, he gets the short roll and finds an open shooter really well. We saw a couple of good passes from that today. Thing that I don't like is they don't really have any plus defenders. Right? Like, is there anybody on this team you would call a plus defender? I'm not sure that I would at this point.
Maybe Bine. But
he's like PJ Tucker, man. He's just like a big body. He'll hit some threes.
He looks like he's 13.
He does, but he's built like he's built like a linebacker, like a defensive end.
Hey Nick, are him and Klemen brothers?
They are not. They're cousins. Turns out there. There you go. Let us know in the comment section. Do you believe?
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
That Slovenia can win the FIBA World Cup? They could go against Germany and Australia in the next round. So we'll be talking about that and covering those games, of course. Guys, thanks so much for listening to Locked On Mavs.
Peace out.
Boom.